So on the left, you have the same old shit. On the right, you have the crazy new shit. So I think on the left would be classical storytelling, things like The Great Gatsby, things like Citizen Kane, you know, stories that are controlled entirely by the author and tend to exist within kind of a discrete narrative. They also tend to exist within the imaginations of individuals, but back in the day, it was very hard for those individual imaginations to be threaded together into something larger. On the right, though, there's a field that's, like places like the MIT Media Studies Lab are really digging into this idea of transmedia storytelling. A lot of that's been enabled by new technologies that sort of allow for things like, millions of people's individual points of view on a story being able to come together at one point, or for things like, video games that allow you to experience the narrative of a movie for yourself in an entirely new way, but while keeping some of the same characters from the movie in place. That was just basically impossible before. And I think when it comes to advertising, on the left, just thinking of sort of integrated advertising ideas, that's kind of, par for the course. That's kind of the cost of entry these days. You don't really win that many awards for that. And that's a case of sort of ideas or things that go nicely together. So you can have a TV spot, you can have a website that, to use a phrase that's overused, brings it to life. And then you might have a Facebook page that kind of looks like the website. And it's okay. These things, they go nicely together and they feel integrated. At least they don't feel disintegrated and they don't make any sense. But on the right are ideas that, there aren't that many out there, to be honest. It's still a pretty new field. But transmedia advertising ideas, I think, can be defined by a bunch of things, a bunch of ideas, a bunch of stories that change how I understand and experience other things and stories in sort of the larger meta-narrative. What this means for you, we're going to try and simplify it a bit with a couple examples, because some of this stuff can get a little bit heady, so I really like this image. I think the way it used to be, I think marketers would think this way. They would just care about what they wanted to tell people, and they wouldn't understand that there's a difference between telling and communicating, and there's a huge difference. I think you could also say that a few more old school creative types would think this way, where they just wanted that nice piece of film for their reel, or they didn't really like people meddling in their scripts, so they didn't feel comfortable coming up with a script for a video game. It's actually very hard to write for game design. I think an interesting trend is you're seeing a little bit of osmosis between the video game industry and the advertising industry, and I think that's really important. But it's a really hard way to think if you're used to sort of controlling the entire story from your point of view. So we think the new way should be that, as advertising industry professionals, we're going to have ideas, but the people out there consuming the stories have ideas, they have better ideas, they have more ideas, they have different ideas. And then together, in combination, those ideas can create something new and special that just previously, it wasn't possible for this to exist.